First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to cover my arms at my cousin's wedding? A few years ago, I was involved in a very painful and scary accident. Most of me was unscathed, but my arms, mainly my forearms, were damaged. I recovered 80 to 85% of my mobility, and all I have left now are some scars. Most are not that bad, but 3 of them are big and pink, which, because of my slightly darker skin, really stand out. It took me ages to really come to terms with myself. I know it sounds silly, but I had to practice looking in the mirror and telling myself that my arms and my body are fine, and how silly it is to worry about this kind of thing. Fast forward to this year, where I get an invitation to be a bridesmaid in my cousin's wedding, which will take place late next year, when my cousin and her fiancé predict the pandemic to have died down. The first red flag, which I did not pick up on, was when my cousin video called me to show me the bridesmaid's dress I'd be wearing, sleeveless and completely identical to the other 7 bridesmaids' dresses. I got up at one point to grab a pair of shoes to show her, leaving the camera on as I did so. When I returned, she had a strange look on her face, and she said she'd have to call me later and hung up. A week later, she calls me, tearily, telling me that I'm so sorry to do this, but my best friend X ruined her dress, and you are the only one with the same size dress. I clearly knew where this was going, and I told her I didn't mind, etc. After some small talk, we finished the call. Again, I didn't think much of it. Then, a few days ago, my cousin calls to ask what I ended up deciding to wear. I was a bit confused, as this seems very early to worry about a wedding taking place next March, but I pulled a few options out of my closet to show her. Her response was, don't any of them have sleeves? No, they all look very pretty though, I answered. After a pause, she sighed heavily and said, Look, I don't know how else to say this, but I don't want your arms in my pictures. They're just so ugly. Even if you're not a bridesmaid, you'll still be in the pictures. And then she burst into tears. I was speechless. I felt angry, hurt, and shocked all at once. She kept sputtering and blubbering about how horrible my arms would look in her high-definition photos. I was still speechless, angry tears getting ready to pour out. Finally, I found my voice and said, I don't care how you feel about my arms. I spent months coming to terms with my body, and I see no reason to hide it. If that's a deal breaker, I won't be at your wedding. She gasped, and I hung up. Now I'm getting all sorts of text from my cousin, her fiancé, and several of her friends telling me what a selfish witch I am. I started to feel bad, but I also don't think I should be forced to feel ugly and ashamed. I wouldn't even be in all the important pictures if I'm just a regular guest. I don't know, Reddit. I just don't know. Am I the a-hole? Thanks for reading. Now for the top comments. Imagine being such a selfish and narcissistic person that you would tell someone to cover their arms so they don't ruin her wedding photos because they are different than hers. Not the a-hole, and I wouldn't show up to her wedding at all. Or, if you do decide to go, I hope you show off your arms in all your glory and stay confident in yourself. I'm so sorry for what she said to you. And then to cry to the victim about it. Maximum entitled brat alert. I immediately got skeptical when she called Opie crying because one of her other bridesmaids conveniently ruined her dress. She's crying for everything. Typical narc reaction. They start crying to get people to do things they want. Not the a-hole. Why do people get so insane about weddings that they are willing to treat people like crap? I am so sorry, and please know that your scars are not ugly. Your cousin is ugly for acting that way. Thank you everyone for your kind and encouraging words. I think not going to this wedding would be much better for my mental health than attending. My cousin has always been a little shallow, but it really did hurt this time. Thank you Reddit for helping me feel better about removing this woman and her cohorts from my life. I'm glad you are feeling better. You should. This is more than a little shallow. It's that old thing of if someone tells you who they are, believe them. Seriously, the only ugly person here is the cousin, who sounds like one of the ugliest, pettiest, meanest people I've ever heard of. An ugly soul. And they don't make a sleeve to cover that. Now for the second story. Am I the a-hole for uninviting my fiancé's college friend from our wedding? Hello. So, I am getting married in 3 weeks in a small wedding with less than 10 guests due to the ongoing pandemic. Two of the guests that my fiancé and I initially invited were a couple, a man and a woman, who my fiancé met during his undergraduate years at the university in Texas. I will call this woman Renee and her husband Isaac. My fiancé has known both of them for almost 10 years now, which makes me feel like I am the a-hole for uninviting Renee after she made, not one, but two inappropriate comments that made me feel uncomfortable. Although I never had a chance to meet her in person, I thought it would have been a good idea if I met Renee and Isaac through a Skype call, because my fiancé talked about them all the time. So, when that Skype call started, I was initially excited to meet my fiancé's best friends from college, until Renee said her first inappropriate comment that made me raise my eyebrow. To paraphrase, she said, "Oh, I remember why I wanted to be friends with your fiancé back in the day when we were college students. Because your fiancé said something so out there that it really caught my attention, that he was going commando. Yes, not wearing underwear beneath his pants, because he wanted to see how it felt like." Then, she and my fiancé laughed, but her husband and I didn't. Because, well, it was inappropriate for her to talk about my fiancé that way. When I confronted my fiancé about Renee's comment after the Skype call, he just shrugged his shoulders and said, "I can't control what other people say." Flash forward to a few days ago, several months after my initial Skype call with Renee and Isaac, and I decided to talk to Renee during a one-on-one phone call between me and her only, just so I can get a better understanding of who she is. Well, during that awkward phone conversation, we quickly turned to the topic of me and my fiancé's wedding theme. What are the colors? And I said to Renee, "Blue. Our wedding's theme is blue." And then, without missing a beat, she suggested, "Oh, well, I have a white dress with blue flowers saved in my list on my Amazon account. I am sure that dress will fit the theme. Can I also wear a dress that shows my cleavage?" My heart immediately dropped when she said that, but I was able to keep my composure because I didn't want to offend her in any way. So I politely said, "Please wear a solid color. Any shade of blue is fine." And then we hung up. When I called Renee a second time last night, she confessed that her dress was predominantly white with blue flowers. So finally, I just texted her, without any further elaboration, "You're not invited to the wedding anymore. And since we are not friends, there is no need for us to talk anymore. Goodbye." Was I too harsh? Now for the top comments. "You're the a-hole. Holy crap." She shared a funny anecdote about how she met your fiancé years ago. Nothing inappropriate about that. She was excited in the moment about having a dress in mind. You could have politely told her you prefer her not to. Then you expected her to wear a shade of blue? Then you were really rude to her. Plus, she is your fiancé's friend and you uninvited her, and her husband obviously, for basically no reason. 2 people out of 10, so I'm going to guess they're super important to your fiancé, and your jealousy is showing. It doesn't sound like she uninvited her husband though, so that makes it even worse in my book. You're the a-hole for uninviting someone without talking to your fiancé first. And these uncomfortable comments seem much more innocuous than you seem to be taking it. Right? Commando? Oh, the horror. Grow up, OP. You're the a-hole. I would like to know how your fiancé reacted when you told him you uninvited his friend though. You're the a-hole. 1. It's only rude to wear white to a wedding if it could be mistaken for a wedding dress. A dress with blue flowers is not going to be mistaken for a wedding dress. 2. Just because you're the bride doesn't mean you get to insist people wear a specific color unless they're in the wedding. 3. Renee told you that she wanted to meet your husband for being outlandish, not because she wanted proof that he was going commando. 4. This isn't your wedding. You uninvited one of your fiancé's closest, longest friends without his consent. A white dress with blue flowers is absolutely not appropriate attire for a wedding. That's common knowledge. At best, everyone sucks here. Now, for the final story. Am I the a-hole for telling my fiancé that it would be tacky for her to wear a wedding dress emphasizing her baby bump? Context. We were originally supposed to be married back in June, but that was cancelled for obvious reasons. We're both in our 30s, so the plan had been to start trying for a baby right before our wedding. I wanted to delay that when the wedding was cancelled, since I didn't want her to be pregnant and unmarried, but she begged me to stick with the original plan due to our age and medical history, and promised that if and when she got pregnant, we'd have a civil ceremony. She got pregnant our first cycle but didn't want to have the ceremony right away. She said there was no rush. By August, she had decided she instead wanted to do a small ceremony in December at her parents' house and didn't want a civil ceremony because she wanted our ceremony to be real. Fine. Dispute. My fiancé's original dress won't work for our wedding in December because by then, she'll be almost 30 weeks pregnant, so she had to find another that would work with her stomach. I haven't seen it, but when I asked her how it works, she told me it is form-fitted. I did ask her to clarify, just to be sure I didn't have the wrong idea, and she told me that the dress isn't meant to hide her stomach, it is meant to complement it. I am already uncomfortable with the situation, and I have family coming that are not happy with the way we've done things. I can deal with that, but I think this is too much. It's a bad look, in my opinion, that makes us look tacky. She, on the other hand, says it's fine and not a problem. Why I may be the a-hole. I told her my thoughts and how I felt her flaunting her pregnancy while we're getting married would be a bad look. I said that wearing a dress like that would be tacky and begged her to choose something less form-fitting. That really upset her, so now I am the a-hole because I, in her words, am prioritizing the feelings of my family over her feelings and shaming her for being pregnant and treating her like an embarrassment. My intent wasn't to hurt her or make her feel like I am ashamed of her, but I want her to be reasonable and sensitive to the situation. I did offer to do a separate ceremony later after the baby is born if we had eloped, but she declined. So, I don't think she can say I didn't try to accommodate her, and I don't feel like my ask is unreasonable given how flexible I've been until now. Am I the a-hole? Now, for the top comments. You're the a-hole, 100%. You're the a-hole, you're the a-hole. You know where babies come from. You're trying to shame her for not being embarrassed even though you're embarrassed. Cut the apron strings with your 19th century family. I, in her words, am prioritizing the feelings of my family over her feelings and shaming her for being pregnant and treating her like an embarrassment. She is correct. But I want her to be reasonable, you mean embarrassed, and sensitive to the situation, about what an unmarried pregnant woman is. I did offer to do a separate ceremony later after the baby is born if we had eloped, but she declined. Mighty magnanimous of you to give her a golden opportunity to keep her dirty little secret from your upstanding family whose opinions actually matter to you. So I don't think she can say I didn't try to accommodate her. Appalling, brazen, slutty refusal to hide herself from your justifiably mortified family. Am I right? And I don't feel like my ask is unreasonable. Dude, it is unreasonable for the man who got her pregnant to expect her to be embarrassed for herself, much less to think that you are doing her some kind of favor for trying to convince her it's some kind of social faux pas. Given how flexible I've been until now, you have clearly expressed the fact that you feel personally humiliated by her pregnancy, are horrified to discover she is not, and want to shame her into acting like it's a dirty little secret to be hidden. There is nothing flexible about trying to bully her into acting as if she has something to be ashamed of. Not to mention the fact that this isn't exactly her dirty little secret, since it wasn't the postman who put that baby there. You're the a-hole. You shouldn't be having a kid if you're ashamed of your fiancé's baby bump. She shouldn't have to hide it or wear a tent because you haven't finished growing up. How the hell did you think calling her trashy would go over remotely less than terrible? I just want to know how stupid this guy has to be to think calling his pregnant hormonal fiancé tacky would go over well.